A lot of writers tend to limit themselves and they limit their stories so they can do a couple of things. They can either appeal to a different audience or make their story kind of like another person's story to try to make themselves make a better story. The problem is we're limiting ourselves. So limiting ourselves generally makes our stories worse, and it's you can see it in the narrative. You can feel it even if you don't really know what you're feeling. You can tell when a story is limiting itself and it's not really going all in. It's just sort of half effort, you know? You can always tell. So, I want to challenge you guys, whether you're a writer, an artist, an actor, whatever you do. I want to challenge you to unleash your creativity. Just go all in, you know? Take all the reins off, uh, cut the ropes, like, unleash your creativity, have fun with it. So there are a few reasons we tend to limit ourselves. One of the reasons we limit our art, we limit ourselves, is to appeal to more than one, or not just more than one, to appeal to a general audience, to appeal to as many people as we can. We don't want anyone to not like our art. That's not fun. I understand that. Getting negative reviews, negative comments, that's not fun. But we can't appeal to everyone. There are going to be people that don't like our art. If we appeal to everyone, then we appeal to no one. It's going to be broad, it's going to be bland, it's going to be boring, and people aren't going to like it. um, Usually, if we try to appeal to as many people as we can, the art that we make tends to be worse for it, and it's not good. So don't appeal to everyone. I want you to make sure you're appealing to either a very specific audience or yourself. Make sure you're not trying to appeal to everyone. Because a smaller audience that, like, say there's a small audience that really enjoys steampunk fiction, appeal to those guys. You're not going to be appealing to historical fiction nerds. You're not going to be appealing to hard science fiction nerds. You're going to be appealing to fans of steampunk. That's very different from trying to appeal to all of science fiction or all of, fiction in general, even people who don't read. So there's never going to be a story that you write that everybody loves. There's always going to be at least one person that doesn't like it, and that's okay. It is what it is. Not everyone's going to like your stuff. That's how the world works. We all have different tastes, we all have different opinions, and that's okay. But don't let that limit your creativity. And on that point, if you write to appeal to a specific person, if you write in a way that appeals to the taste of someone else, your story is also going to be bad. I have written stories for other people, stories that I thought they would like, and I would include tropes that I thought they would find interesting and ideas they would find interesting, but I didn't find it interesting, and I usually didn't finish those stories. Either that, or I wrote a story, someone told me they didn't like it, and I changed it because of that one person. But you cannot do this. You cannot appeal to other people. You can't try to write what you think they're going to like. Because as much as you want people to like your fiction, there's nothing wrong with wanting people to like your fiction. But you can't try to make sure they like your fiction. Because if you're writing something you don't find interesting, you're not going to have fun writing, and that joy isn't going to leak into the page because there is no joy to leak into the page. So people are going to notice, it's not going to feel right, and your story's going to suffer for it. So do not appeal to other people, and do not appeal to their interests, because if you don't find it interesting, it's not going to be fun for you. Appeal to your interests. Write something you would want to read. Write something you find interesting and, like, really want to write about it, Just find something like that, and something that piques your interest. Another way of unleashing your creativity is releasing all expectations you have of yourself. This is something I've struggled with for a very long time, because I expect myself to write the next masterpiece. I expect myself to write the next Lord of the Rings, Dune, whatever. But that's not realistic. I know my limits. I think I'm a good writer, but I know that I'm not that good. And I probably never will be good, and I'm okay with that. You know, I don't need to write the next masterpiece to be a good author. Michael Crichton, I've read Jurassic Park, which was really good, but his other books are not so good, in my opinion. Um, so, not every book is going to be a masterpiece, so don't stress about it. Just write what you think is fun. Don't try to make it good, just have a good time writing it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't study and learn to improve your craft, because there are things you can do to make your stories better. But I am saying you shouldn't change your story dramatically to appeal to those rules, to try to make your story as best as you can. There's nothing wrong with wanting to write a good story. Everyone wants to write a good story. That's why we write stories. I don't write stories to write a bad story, but don't hold yourself back because you think people aren't going to like it and you think it makes the story worse. If you feel that it's right for the story, and if you feel that it should be included in the narrative, include it. Whatever idea it is, whatever weird, wacky thing it is, throw it in the story and make it work, which sounds harder than it is. You can put whatever you want in the story as long as for the second draft you go back and establish it earlier into the narrative, weave it into the story earlier, so that way it just feels natural and part of the narrative, and it doesn't feel like you're just shoehorning in something. It's no Deus Ex Machina. It just makes sense with the story. So don't try to write a masterpiece. Just have fun with it. Release the expectations of yourself. Don't worry if it's bad or good, and just write and have fun. These are just a few ways I have found works best for me when unleashing my creativity. And one thing that they all have in common is comparison. We often compare ourselves to others. We compare our work to other people's works. And we compare our work to other people's tastes and interests. But comparing our work to other people and other works and other interests is not going to work, because there are 100 other works out there with 100 different interests and 100 different reasons why they're good. You cannot write the story that encompasses all of that. I know it hurts to hear, but it's the reality of the situation. The story you write is going to appeal to one person, and that person is you. Other people will find that interesting. There are other people who like your interests. There are other people who have similar tastes to you. But not everyone is going to have the same interests and taste as you. Not everyone is going to find your work interesting, and that's okay. They don't have to. It's not required. But you have to be okay with that and let your creativity loose and not worry what other people think, which can be hard, especially if you're trying to traditional publish, in which case you do have to appeal to other people, which is a lot harder to do, I think. If you're writing a story for someone else, it's a lot harder to make it good than if you're writing a story for yourself. If you're writing something that you think is interesting, it is so much easier to write. But if you're writing a story you think a publisher or an agent or an editor is going to find interesting, it's going to be very difficult to appeal to someone who has different tastes and different interests than you do. So just be aware of that. I'm not saying you shouldn't traditionally publish. Traditional publishing has worked for decades, for a century. There's nothing wrong with it. But I am saying that if you want to let loose, and if you want to go all out and not worry about what other people think, I think going indie or self-published is the best option. Because you're not writing to please an editor. You're not writing to please a publisher. You're not writing for the numbers to go up. You're writing because it's fun, because you love doing it, and because it's something that interests you. So unleash your creativity. Have fun, and don't worry about what other people think. People are going to judge your work. That's just how it is. But don't let them fool you into thinking that you're a bad artist. You are a fantastic artist. No matter what you do, you're a fantastic artist, and you're only going to get better as you go. So keep having fun, keep learning, and unleash that creativity. Exercise it, and it's going to grow. I hope this helps you guys. I have a newsletter. Link is down in my bio, my description, where I talk about more on these kinds of subjects. I talk about writing as a whole, talk about creativity, the nature of the publishing industry. I'll also talk about specific movies or shows or books that I experience, even games sometimes, because games are a very strong narrative tool in my opinion. That's a topic for another time though. I might have to talk about that in a future video. But make sure to check that out. Link is in the description. I also have written a few books myself. I've written 2 science fiction novels and 2 fantasy novellas. The science fiction novels, one of them is standalone, and the other is part of a trilogy. I am making my way through the next 2 right now. I'm writing them both at the same time. And the novellas, they're both fantasy novellas that are connected to a larger series that I'm planning on maybe finishing this next year. But we'll see how that goes. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped you guys. Make sure you unleash your creativity and have a good time. Y'all take care.